May 8, 1942, 11:27 a.m., aboard the USS Yorktown steaming through the choppy turquoise swells of the Coral Sea northeast of Australia. The air vibrates with the thunderous roar of Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighters scrambling off the flight deck, their propellers slicing through the humid Pacific breeze like desperate claws. Alarms blare sharp, piercing wails that cut through the chaos as lookouts shout warnings of incoming bogeys. You can almost taste the salt spray mixed with the acrid tang of aviation fuel, feel the deck shudder underfoot as anti-aircraft guns pound away, tracers arcing skyward in fiery streams. Captain Elliot Buckmaster grips the bridge railing, his eyes locked on the horizon where black dots resolve into a swarm of Japanese HID-3A Val dive bombers, plummeting from 10,000 feet like vengeful hawks. The first wave hits hard. Explosions rock the carrier as near misses send geysers of water erupting alongside the hull, drenching the deck crews in a cold, stinging cascade. Men in grease-streaked khakis dash across the wooden flight deck, hauling hoses and ammunition, their faces etched with grim determination. Lieutenant Commander William O. Birch, leading Fighting Squadron 42 VF-42, vectors his Wildcats into the fray, the chatter of .50 caliber machine guns echoing like staccato drumbeats. But one Val slips through the flak curtain, its pilot, perhaps a young ensign from the carrier Shikaku, releasing a 250-kilogram semi-armor-piercing bomb at point-blank range. It screams downward, a dark shadow against the bright sky, and strikes home just above the island's superstructure. The impact is cataclysmic. The bomb punches through 4 decks, steel plating buckling like tin foil, before detonating in an aviation storage room deep in the bowels of the ship. A massive fireball erupts, flames licking upward through vents and hatches, engulfing compartments in a hellish inferno. 66 sailors are killed or horribly wounded in an instant. Screams pierce the smoke-filled air as men trapped below deck claw at bulkheads, their skin blistering from the heat. Superheater boilers rupture, steam hissing violently as pressure drops, crippling the engines and slowing the mighty Yorktown to a wounded crawl. Damage control parties, led by Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Joseph J. Rochefort's teams, race into the breach, pumping seawater into the flames, their eyes watering from the choking black smoke that billows across the deck like a funeral shroud. Rear Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher, commanding Task Force 17 from Yorktown's flag bridge, feels the ship list slightly under the blow. "Steady her course," he barks, his voice calm amid the pandemonium, but inside a knot of dread tightens. Nearby, the USS Lexington, Yorktown's sister carrier, takes even worse punishment, her decks ablaze as torpedoes rip into her sides. Pilots from Yorktown's air group, including those from Scouting Squadron 5 VS-5 in their Douglas SBD-3 Dauntless dive bombers, have already scored hits on the Japanese light carrier Shoho the day before, radioing back the exultant cry, "Scratch one flat top," but now the tide turns viciously. Japanese Zeros strafe the decks, bullets ricocheting off armored plating with metallic pings, wounding gunners at their 5-inch mounts. As the attack wanes, Yorktown steams on, her crew battling fires that threaten to consume the hangar deck. The scent of burning rubber and cordite hangs heavy, mingling with the metallic bite of blood from the wounded stretched out on cots in the wardroom. Buckmaster surveys the damage, a gaping hole in the flight deck, riddled hull plating from those near misses, and engineering spaces flooded with oily water. Experts on board whisper that repairs could take months, dry dock time to weld new plates, overhaul the boilers, restore the elevators. Yet in this moment of survival, a fierce resolve ignites among the men. They've halted Japan's advance on Port Moresby, but at what cost? Lexington, engulfed in uncontrollable fires, is scuttled by her own torpedoes later that day, her abandonment a somber spectacle of lifeboats bobbing in the swells. Yorktown limps away from the Coral Sea, her speed reduced to 16 knots, trailing a thin plume of smoke like a wounded warrior. Fletcher signals Pearl Harbor. The carrier is hurt but not broken. Little do they know, intelligence from codebreakers at Station Hypo has uncovered a greater threat. A massive Japanese fleet bearing down on Midway Atoll. As Yorktown steams toward Hawaii, the question hangs in the salt-laden air. Can this battered giant be revived in time, or will she sit out the decisive clash to come? May 27, 1942, 3:42 p.m. Pearl Harbor Navy Yard, Oahu Territory of Hawaii. The massive grey hull of USS Yorktown eases alongside Pier 3 at the sprawling naval base, her scarred flight deck still blackened from Coral Sea fires, a jagged 30-foot hole gaping just forward of the midships elevator like an open wound. Tugboats nudge her gently, their whistles moaning in the humid afternoon air, while hundreds of sailors line the rails, exhausted faces streaked with oil and sweat, eyes squinting against the bright Pacific sun. You can smell the lingering stench of burnt insulation and fuel oil drifting across the water, mingling with the sharp tang of fresh welding sparks as repair crews already swarm the gangways before the lines are even secured. Captain Elliot Buckmaster steps onto the pier, his uniform rumpled, and is immediately met by Rear Admiral William W. Smith, commander of the Navy Yard, flanked by a cluster of grim-faced engineers. The initial damage report is brutal. 3 bomb hits confirmed, 1 direct, 2 near misses that buckled 23 frames and flooded multiple compartments. The forward aviation fuel tanks ruptured, boilers damaged, radar arrays shattered, and the flight deck warped from intense heat. Yard Superintendent Captain Claude G. Grange spreads blueprints across a makeshift table, pointing to the structural tiers. 3 months minimum in dry dock, he states flatly. We'll need to cut away damaged plating, refabricate sections, test the propulsion plant. It's not just patching holes, sir. But standing behind them, arms folded, is Admiral Chester W. Nimitz himself, Commander-in-Chief, Pacific Fleet. His presence alone silences the yard officers. Nimitz has just come from Station Hypo, where Commander Joseph J. Rochefort and his codebreakers have delivered the bombshell. The Japanese are coming for Midway in early June. 4, possibly 5 carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Huryu, backed by the full might of the combined fleet under Admiral Yamamoto. America has only 2 operational carriers in the entire Pacific, Enterprise and Hornet. A third is desperately needed. Nimitz looks up at Yorktown's battered island superstructure, then back at the engineers. His voice is quiet but carries the weight of the war. You have 72 hours, get her to sea. The words land like a thunderclap. 72 hours, not weeks, not even days in the plural. 3 days to do what normally takes months. Captain Grange protests politely but firmly that it's impossible. Nimitz doesn't raise his voice, he simply repeats, 72 hours. Then he turns to Buckmaster. Your ship, your crew, whatever you need, you'll get. The yard erupts into controlled chaos. Over 1,400 workers, shipfitters, welders, electricians, machinists pour aboard in shifts that never end. Floodlights blaze through the night, turning the harbor into daylight. The clatter of pneumatic riveters and the hiss of acetylene torches never stops. Men work in the bowels of the ship, ankle-deep in oily water, patching ruptured fuel lines with whatever plate steel is on hand. Others swarm the flight deck, cutting away twisted metal and laying new wooden planking over temporary steel patches, good enough to launch planes, not perfect, but good enough. No time for paint, the fresh welds gleam raw against the old camouflage. Down in the engineering spaces, Lieutenant Commander John F. Delaney, Jr., Yorktown's damage control officer, orchestrates miracles. Boiler uptakes are jury-rigged, steam lines rerouted around shattered sections. Radar technicians cannibalize parts from other ships to restore the CXA-M1 air search set. In the hangar deck, ordnancemen reload torpedoes and bombs, while Air Group commanders, Lieutenant Commander Maxwell F. Leslie of Bombing Squadron 3 VB3 among them, brief newly arrived pilots fresh from the States, many still green on the dauntless dive bombers they'll soon fly into hell. Sleep is a luxury no one claims. Coffee flows in rivers. Cigarette smoke hangs thick under the floodlights. A welder nods off mid-shift and has to be shaken awake. Another crew hauls a massive steel plate up the side using block and tackle, muscles straining, sweat pouring down their backs in the tropical heat. Every man knows what's at stake. If Yorktown doesn't sail, Midway falls. If Midway falls, Hawaii is next, and after Hawaii, the West Coast itself. By the morning of May 29, less than 48 hours in, the impossible starts looking possible. The holes are covered, the engines turn over smoothly during basin trials. The flight deck, though pocked with visible patches, is pronounced operable. Nimitz returns for a final inspection, walking the deck with Buckmaster. He stops at the largest patch, a 30 by 40-foot steel plate welded over the bomb crater, and taps it with his shoe. Solid. He nods once. Well done. But as Yorktown prepares to get underway on May 30, a final, chilling piece of intelligence reaches Nimitz. Japanese reconnaissance planes have already begun searching the central Pacific. They know Enterprise and Hornet are at sea. They believe Yorktown is still in dry dock, crippled beyond repair. They have no idea she's coming. And when she appears on the horizon at Midway, what will the Japanese admirals think? June 2, 1942, 600 hours. 700 miles northeast of Midway Atoll, the vast Pacific stretches out in endless blue swells under a pale dawn sky. USS Yorktown steams at 25 knots as part of Task Force 17, her freshly patched flight deck gleaming with dew, the raw steel welds still visible like scars on a prize fighter who refuses to stay down. Captain Elliot Buckmaster stands on the bridge, coffee cup in hand, watching his air patrol launch. 12 Grumman F4 Wildcats roaring off the deck in pairs, their Pratt & Whitney engines thundering as they climb into the morning light. You can feel the vibration through the steel bulkheads, hear the whistle of wind over the island's superstructure, smell the sharp bite of high-octane avgas as deck crews in color-coded jerseys swarm below like a living machine. Rear Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher flies his flag once more from Yorktown, sharing command of the task force with Rear Admiral Raymond A. Spruance on Enterprise, leading Task Force 1630 miles astern. The two forces operate separately but in concert, 3 carriers against Japan's 4. Nimitz's gamble. Yorktown's air group has been hastily rebuilt. Bombing Squadron 3 VB3 under Lieutenant Commander Maxwell F. Leslie, equipped with SBD Dauntless dive bombers. Torpedo Squadron 3 VT3 with obsolete Douglas TBD-1 Devastators led by Lieutenant Commander Lance E. Massey, and a reinforced Fighting Squadron 3 VF3, now including many pilots borrowed from the sunken Saratoga, flying the tougher folding wing F4F4s. The men know the odds. They've heard the intelligence briefings. They know Nagumo's first carrier striking force is out there. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Huryu, veterans of Pearl Harbor, veterans of the Indian Ocean raid, flush with confidence. Aboard the Japanese flagship Akagi, Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo reviews the latest search reports over breakfast in the wardroom. His staff officers spread charts across the table, marking the positions of the reported American carriers, only 2 Enterprise and Hornet. Reconnaissance floatplanes from cruisers Tone and Chikuma have swept wide arcs to the east. Nothing. American radio traffic is quiet. Nagumo nods, satisfied. The Yorktown he believes is still in Pearl Harbor, her guts torn open by Coral Sea bombs. Japanese intelligence estimates she will not return to service for months. A 3rd American carrier is not even factored into his battle plan. At 4:30 that morning, Nagumo launched his first strike, 108 aircraft, 36 Val dive bombers, 36 Kate torpedo planes and 36 Zero fighters targeting Midway's airfields. His carriers turn into the wind, recovering the Midway attack force by 900. Damage reports filter in. Midway's defenses bloodied but not broken. The island's Marines still fight. Nagumo faces a choice: rearm his reserve aircraft with torpedoes for a second strike on Midway, or hold them ready for ship targets. His Chief of Staff, Rear Admiral Runosuke Kusaka, argues caution. American carriers have been sighted but not yet located precisely. Then, at 10:22 hours, everything changes. A belated reconnaissance report crackles over Akagi's radios from Tone's No. 4 floatplane, piloted by Warrant Officer Amari. Enemy carrier sighted, bearing 10, distance 200 miles. Nagumo's face tightens. One carrier, where are the others? He orders his reserve aircraft, already armed with land bombs for Midway, rearmed immediately with torpedoes and armor-piercing bombs. Decks erupt in frantic activity as ordnancemen wheel bombs back below, cursing the delay. Zeros circle overhead, fuel running low. What Nagumo does not know, what no one in the Japanese fleet knows, is that the carrier Amari has spotted is Yorktown, the Ghost, the ship they wrote off as crippled. As Leslie's Dauntlesses climb to altitude, joining aircraft from Enterprise and Hornet in a coordinated strike, the Americans hold the initiative. Spruance has launched early, aggressively, accepting the risk of a long-range attack to catch Nagumo with his planes on deck. Aboard Yorktown, the launch is textbook despite the patched deck. Leslie leads VB-3 aloft at 10:50, 33 Dauntlesses in loose formation, each carrying a 500-pound bomb under the fuselage. Massey's torpedo planes follow, slow and vulnerable. The fighters climb to cover. Buckmaster watches them disappear into the haze, then turns to his executive officer, Commander Clarence E. Dickinson. "If we pull this off," he says quietly, "it'll be the biggest surprise the Japs have had since Pearl Harbor." High above the Pacific, the American strike wings converge. Leslie's pilots spot the Japanese fleet first, 4 carriers in a tight box formation, their decks swarming with aircraft and crews. Smoke trails from funnels, Zeros scramble to intercept. The sky becomes a maelstrom, but the first blood will not be drawn by the Japanese. When Leslie's Dauntlesses roll into their near-vertical dives on Akagi, Kaga and Soryu, what will happen to Nagumo's invincible fleet? June 4, 1942, 10:24 hours, 180 miles northwest of Midway Atoll, altitude 19,000 feet. The sun glares off the Whitecaps far below as Lieutenant Commander Maxwell F. Leslie leads 17 SBD Dauntless dive bombers from Yorktown's Bombing Squadron 3 in a wide, sweeping arc toward the Japanese carrier force. The air up here is thin and cold. Pilots breathe through oxygen masks, their gloved hands tight on the control sticks. You can almost feel the bite of that high-altitude chill seeping through the cockpit glass. Hear the steady drone of the Wright R-1820 radial engines as the formation holds tight, wings glinting like silver knives against the endless blue. Below them, spread in a loose box, steam 4 Japanese fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu and Huryu. Their flight decks are a nightmare of congestion, Zero fighters taxiing for takeoff, Kate torpedo planes loaded with bombs and fuel, crews in colored shirts running frantically to rearm the reserve strike that was meant for Midway. Black smoke trails from their stacks as they turn into the wind. Nagumo's carriers are caught in the most vulnerable moment imaginable. Planes on deck, ordnance exposed, fuel hoses snaking everywhere. Leslie spots Akagi first, the red rising sun insignia on her deck unmistakable. He rolls his Dauntless into position, followed by the rest of VB-3. At the same moment, dive bombers from Enterprise, led by Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey and Clarence Dickinson, appear from a different vector, targeting Kaga and Soryu. The timing is almost miraculous. 3 separate American air groups, launched from 3 carriers hundreds of miles apart, converge within minutes of one another. Leslie pushes over into his dive at 10:40 hours. The world tilts violently. The Dauntless plummets nose first toward Akagi, speed building to over 300 knots. Wind howls past the canopy. The carrier rushes up to meet him, her deck suddenly huge, details sharp, anti-aircraft guns spitting orange fire, tiny figures scattering like ants. Leslie's bomb sight steadies on the red circle amidships. He ignores the tracers whipping past, the Zero that flashes by in a futile chase. At 2,000 feet, he releases the 500-pound bomb and pulls out hard, G-forces crushing him into the seat, vision graying at the edges. Behind him, the sky fills with screaming Dauntlesses. 4 bombs slam into Akagi in seconds. One hits forward, another amidships, a third near the island. The 4th detonates among parked aircraft loaded with fuel and torpedoes. Secondary explosions ripple across the deck, aviation gas igniting in roaring fireballs, torpedoes cooking off in chain reactions. Flames leap hundreds of feet into the air, black smoke boiling upward like a funeral pyre. Almost simultaneously, McCluskey's Enterprise bombers tear into Kaga. 5 direct hits. Her deck erupts in a volcano of flame as stacked bombs and fuel go up together. Soryu takes 3 hits from the same group. Her hangar deck becomes an inferno, the ship shuddering as internal explosions rip her apart from within. In less than 6 minutes, 3 of Japan's 4 precious fleet carriers are mortally wounded, their decks transformed into blazing wreckage. Crews fight hopeless battles against the fires, hoses melting in their hands, ammunition magazines threatening to blow. Nagumo, aboard Akagi, is forced to transfer his flag to a cruiser as his flagship burns uncontrollably. Aboard Yorktown, Captain Buckmaster and Admiral Fletcher listen to the radio chatter, garbled, excited voices of returning pilots. Direct hits on Big Red Sun, she's burning like hell, cargo's gone. The bridge erupts in cheers. Men slap each other on the back, eyes shining with disbelief and fierce pride. Their patched-up carrier, the one supposed to be in dry dock, has just helped deliver the most devastating single blow in naval history. But the battle is far from over. Hurryu, the fourth Japanese carrier, remains untouched. Her air group Valdive bombers, escorted by Zeros, has already launched in search of the American fleet. At 11:45 hours, Yorktown's radar picks up incoming bogies. Alarms sound once more. Buckmaster orders general quarters. Wildcats scramble to intercept, but some Japanese planes break through. The Vals roll in high overhead, sunlight flashing off their fixed landing gear as they tip over into their dives. Yorktown's second ordeal of the war is about to begin. Will the miracle repairs hold against fresh bombs, or will the ghost carrier finally be sent to the bottom? June 4, 1942, 11:59 hours, aboard USS Yorktown, 180 miles northwest of Midway. The tropical sun beats down mercilessly on the flight deck as klaxons howl once again, their urgent wail cutting through the triumphant chatter that still lingers from the morning strike. Radar plots show 18 incoming HD-3A Val dive bombers from Hurryu, escorted by 6 sleek Mitsubishi A6M0s, closing fast at 180 knots. You can feel the sudden spike of tension ripple through the ship. Men who moments ago were grinning over coffee now sprint to battle stations, steel helmets clamping down, life jackets cinched tight. The smell of fresh paint from the hurried patches mixes with the sharp bite of cordite as 5-inch, 1.1-inch and 20 gunners swing their barrels skyward. Captain Elliot Buckmaster's voice rings steady over the 1MC. "This is the captain. Commence firing when in range. Make every shot count." On the bridge, Rear Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher stands beside him, binoculars raised, tracking the black specks growing larger against the scattered cumulus. Yorktown turns hard into the wind at 30 knots, her wake boiling white, trying to throw off the attacker's aim. 12 F4 Wildcats from VF-3, already aloft on combat air patrol under Lieutenant Commander John S. Thatch, vector in desperately. Thatch's famous Thatch weave begins to pay dividends, pairs of Wildcats crossing paths, covering each other's tails as Zeros swarm like angry hornets, but the Vals are committed. They split into 2 groups, climbing to 15,000 feet before tipping over into their signature near vertical dives. The first section, 9 planes, targets Yorktown head-on. The lead Val, piloted by Lieutenant Michio Kobayashi, pushes over at 12:05 hours. The scream of its fixed-gear dive fills the air like a banshee wail, growing louder, deafening. Tracers from Yorktown's port batteries arc upward in frantic cones. A 5-inch shell bursts close, shrapnel tears the Val's wing, but Kobayashi holds his dive, releasing an 800-kilogram armor-piercing bomb at 1,500 feet. The bomb strikes just forward of the midships elevator, the very area patched only days ago in Pearl Harbor. It punches through the temporary steel plate and wooden planking as if they were cardboard, detonating deep inside near the uptakes for the boilers. A massive column of flame and black smoke erupts skyward, the shockwave rattling the entire ship. 2 more bombs follow in rapid succession. One hits the stack, shredding the funnel and sending red-hot fragments scything across the signal bridge. The third slams into the sea 30 feet off the port bow, the near-miss buckling plates and flooding compartments below the waterline. Yorktown shudders violently, her speed dropping as fires rage in the boiler rooms. Steam lines rupture, scalding engineers in number 1 fire room. 5 men killed instantly, others horribly burned. The ship takes on a 26-degree list to port as flooding spreads. Black smoke pours from the stack and the gaping hole in the flight deck, turning the midday sun into an eerie twilight. Damage control parties rush forward under Lieutenant Commander John F. Delaney, Jr., hoses snaking across the deck, foam smothering avgas fires before they can spread to the magazines. Thatch's Wildcats claim several Vals on their pullout, flames trailing as they spiral into the sea, but the damage is done. Buckmaster orders counter-flooding to correct the list. Slowly, agonizingly, the deck levels. Engines are restarted on auxiliary boilers. By 13:30 hours, Yorktown is steaming again at 20 knots, her crew hoping they've survived the worst, but the Japanese are not finished. At 1400 hours, radar picks up a second wave, 10 Nakajima B-5N Kate torpedo planes from Huryu, flying low and fast at wave top height, escorted by remaining Zeros. This time the Wildcats are low on fuel and ammunition. Only 6 can engage. The Kates bore in from both bows in a classic anvil attack, forcing Yorktown to turn toward one group or the other. The choice is impossible. The Kates release at 1,000 yards. Torpedoes streak through the water, their wake straight and true. Lookouts shout bearings. Buckmaster orders hard left rudder, trying to comb the tracks. 2 torpedoes broach and run erratic, missing astern. But 3 more find their mark, 2 on the port side amidships, 1 further aft. The impacts are thunderous, lifting the entire 27,000-ton carrier bodily out of the water. Columns of white spray tower hundreds of feet, drenching the deck. The lights go out, all power lost. Yorktown rolls heavily to port, settling lower in the water, dead in the sea. Fires reignite. The list reaches 27 degrees. Men slide across tilting decks, grabbing stanchions to stay aboard. In the hangar, abandoned aircraft break loose, crashing into bulkheads. Admiral Fletcher transfers his flag to the cruiser Astoria. Buckmaster remains aboard, refusing to leave while men are still fighting below. As the sun dips toward late afternoon, the order finally comes: abandon ship. Crewmen slide down lines into the water or leap into rafts, the sea surprisingly warm around them. Destroyers circle like shepherd dogs, picking up survivors. Yorktown drifts, silent except for the hiss of escaping steam and the crackle of lingering fires, her bow low, stern high. The Japanese believe her finished at last. Radio reports from Huryu's pilots claim 2, possibly 3 American carriers sunk. But even now, as night falls over the burning hulk, damage control officers argue fiercely with Buckmaster. The flooding can be contained. The fires can be extinguished. The ship can be saved. Is the ghost carrier truly dead this time? Or will she rise once more to haunt the Imperial Navy? June 5, 1942, 500 hours. The drifting hulk of USS Yorktown wallows in heavy swells 180 miles north of Midway, her decks awash with foam, the red glow of dying fires flickering along her scarred flight deck. Dawn breaks grey and ominous, low clouds scudding across a restless sea. Salvage parties from the destroyer USS Hammond have come alongside during the night, lines secured, pumps humming as they battle the flooding in the engineering spaces. Captain Elliot Buckmaster, sleeves rolled up, face blackened with soot, stands on the forecastle directing the effort. A skeleton crew of volunteers, damage control officers, engineers and gunners has reboarded the seemingly doomed carrier. You can taste the salt spray whipping across the tilted deck, hear the groan of strained bulkheads and the rhythmic chug of portable pumps fighting to keep her afloat. Below in the flooded compartments, men work waist-deep in oily water, shoring ruptured seams with timber and collision mats. Lieutenant Commander John F. Delaney, Jr., shouts orders over the roar of the pumps, his voice hoarse but unbroken. The list has been reduced to 23 degrees. The fires are out. Power flickers back to life from emergency diesels. Buckmaster allows himself a grim smile. She's stubborn, he tells his executive officer. She's not done yet. By mid-morning, tugs are en route from Pearl Harbor. Word spreads through the task force, Yorktown lives, but the Japanese have not given up either. Aboard the still operational Huryu, now the sole remaining carrier of Nagumo's once mighty force, Captain Tomio Kaku prepares a final reconnaissance strike. Though Huryu herself is already doomed, dive bombers from Enterprise having set her ablaze hours earlier, her air group has transferred to other ships. At 10:30 hours, a Kawanishi E-13A Jake float plane from the cruiser Chikuma launches on a routine search pattern. Its pilot, Petty Officer 2nd Class Akira Yamamoto, flies a wide arc to the east. At 12:45 hours, Yamamoto spots the unmistakable silhouette, a large American carrier listing but unmistakably afloat with a destroyer nestled alongside. He circles once, confirming the identification: Yorktown. The ship they bombed twice yesterday, the ship they reported sunk, radioing frantically in clear code, enemy carrier still afloat, position bearing 90, distance 140 miles from our force. The message reaches the flagship of Admiral Yamamoto aboard battleship Yamato, hundreds of miles to the west. Yamamoto, stoic as ever, orders the submarine I-168, commanded by Lieutenant Commander Yahachi Tanabe, into the reported position. Tanabe's boat is already patrolling the area, batteries charged, torpedoes loaded. He alters course immediately, running submerged at slow speed to avoid detection. June 6, 1942, 13:30 hours. Aboard Yorktown, the mood has turned cautiously hopeful. Hammond continues pumping, her crew passing hoses and power cables across the gap. Lookouts sweep the horizon with binoculars, the sea empty except for circling destroyers forming an anti-submarine screen. Benham, Balch, Hughes, Monaghan and Gwynn. The air is thick with diesel fumes and the metallic tang of welding torches as repair parties cut away twisted steel. No one sees the periscope feather 10,000 yards out. I-168 has closed to perfect firing position. Tanabe, peering through the attack scope, counts one large carrier heavily listing but clearly salvageable and one destroyer foolishly tied up alongside. He orders 4 Type 95 oxygen torpedoes fired in a spread. The tracks appear suddenly, thin white wakes arrowing straight for the immobile targets. Lookouts scream warnings. Hammond casts off lines and backs emergency full, her screws churning the water to foam. Too late. At 13:36 hours, the first torpedo broaches and slams into Hammond amidships. The 1,500-pound warhead detonates directly beneath her magazines. A cataclysmic explosion lifts the little destroyer bodily out of the water, breaking her back like a twig. Secondary blasts from her own depth charges ripple outward, sending shockwaves that stun men hundreds of yards away. Hammond rolls over and sinks in 4 minutes, taking 80 of her crew with her. 2 more torpedoes streak past the stern of Yorktown, missing by yards before the 4th finds its mark. The torpedo strikes port side, just forward of the bomb damage from 2 days earlier. The impact is apocalyptic. A towering geyser of white water erupts, followed by the deep, bone-shaking boom of the detonation. Bulkheads already weakened by bombs and earlier torpedoes give way completely. Flooding surges unchecked through ruptured compartments. The great carrier rolls heavily to port, the list increasing rapidly to 30 degrees, then 40. Buckmaster, thrown against a bulkhead, rights himself and surveys the chaos. Water pours in faster than any pump can handle. The groans of tortured steel echo through the hull. For the first time, he knows she cannot be saved. At 1500 hours, he gives the final order: abandon ship. Men slide down lines into the sea one last time, many weeping openly as they look back at the ship that refused to die. Destroyers maneuver close, throwing cargo nets and lines. By 1700 hours, the last man is off. June 7, 1942, 500 hours. Dawn reveals Yorktown still afloat, bow submerged, stern high, the stars and stripes still flying defiantly from the mainmast. But the end comes quietly. With a final shudder, she rolls onto her port side, hesitates for a long moment as if reluctant to leave, then slips beneath the waves at 7:01 hours, taking with her the bodies of 141 brave men and the legend of a ship that rose from near death in 72 hours to help change the course of the Pacific War. Far away aboard Yamamoto receives the confirmation: Yorktown sunk, yet the victory feels hollow. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Huryu all gone. Midway saved, the initiative lost forever. The ghost carrier had haunted them long enough to doom an empire.